تفضل. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على عبده ورسوله نبينا وإمامنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. In light of the lecture before last week, and also what I've been told about regarding the topic of today's khutbah by Imam Abu Muslima, may Allah Azza wa Jal continue to bless him and preserve him, we're going to speak on the harms and dangers and the consequences of zina, of fornication and adultery, from Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala's discussion of the topic in his groundbreaking work Al-Jawab al-Kafi, or Ad-Da'u wad-Dawa, the sickness and the medicine, the illness and the cure, the cancer and the therapy or the treatment. So we spoke before about some of the harms of a zina and some of the reasons why zina is so repugnant, so repulsive, so ugly. And the last part, which we read, the place where we stopped, was regarding the subtle but definite connection between the Prophet ﷺ offering the prayer for the eclipse and towards the end of time, and the Messenger of Allah ﷺ's words regarding the hasad, or not hasad, but the jealousy and the envy that is mentioned, that indeed Allah Azza wa Jal has in a befitting manner, and Allah Azza wa Jal does not like, He isn't pleased when His slave performs the fahisha. Inna Allaha yaghar. And Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, we said that when the Messenger of Allah sallallahu spoke on this major sin, zina, and he spoke on it during the time of the eclipse, he says it is a subtle but definite secret and a connection between the two. And that is, the eclipse is from the signs of the last day, from the things that are unconventional. It's not regular, it's not normal. It comes every now and then. And that's why it's a special prayer therefore. And also Allah Azza wa Jal, He tells us in the Quran Kareem, when the sun goes away. And many of the pious predecessors, they would say, anyone who wishes to look at the Day of Judgment, then he should read those surahs. Surah Al-Takwir, Surah Al-Infitar, Surah Al-Inshiqaq. From the first surahs that you learn and memorize as a new shahada or as a young Muslim. And they all talk about paranormal things, the sun vanishing, the light of the sun being taken away, and that's the end, that's the last day. So Ibn Qayyim, he says, this shows us is that from the signs that the world is destroyed, and from the signs that the last hour is very near, is the prevalence of a zina. How widespread a zina is, just like from the signs of the last day and the going away of this world is certain phenomena regarding the sun and the moon, and regarding the things which are unconventional. This is the last thing that we explained. And that's a very deep concept if you think about it. Why the Prophet chose to speak about that during that night. Moving forward, Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, وَقَدْ جَرَتْ سُنَّةُ اللَّهِ سُبْحَانَهُ فِي خَلْقِهِ أَنَّهُ عِنْدَ ظُهُورِ الزِّنَا يَغْضَبُ اللَّهُ سُبْحَانَهُ وَيَشْتَدُّ غَضَبُهُ فلا بد أن يؤثر غضبه في الأرض عقوبة. قال عبد الله بن مسعود ما ظهر الزنا أو ما ظهر الربا والزنا في قرية إلا أذن الله بإهلاكها. ورأى بعض أحبار بني إسرائيل ابنا له يغامز امرأة فقال مهلا يا بني فصرع الأب عن سريره فانقطع نخاعه وأسقطت امرأته وقيل له هكذا غضبت لي لا يكون في جنسك حبر أبدا. وخص سبحانه حد الزنا من بين الحدود بثلاث خصائص. أحدها القتل فيه أشنع القتلات، وحيث خففه فجمع فيه بين العقوبة على البدن بالجلد وعلى القلب بتغريبه عن وطنه سنة. الثاني أن هنا عباده أن تأخذهم بالزنات رأفة في دينه بحيث تمنعهم من إقامة الحد عليهم، فإنه سبحانه من رأفته ورحمته بهم شرع هذه العقوبة فأرحم منكم، ولم تمنعه رحمته من أمره بهذه العقوبة، فلا يمنعكم أنتم ما يقوم بقلوبكم من الرأفة من إقامة أمره. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, and also those other two reasons why we said this we want to talk about. I was in a store and a sister, she asked me, she said, what is tonight's class on? I said, I don't know. She said, you're the one that's giving the class, how don't you know what the class is on? I said, I don't know. Allah knows best. Oftentimes we pick the topic or khutbah or class on the spot. On the spot. I may see something or hear something or feel something, or I may feel regret or reflect on my own sins or mistakes and come up with a topic. So therefore, Ibn Qayyim, he says, regarding the zina and its harms and its dangers, he says that whenever zina is prevalent, then there's going to be anger from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whenever there's anger from Allah, it has to be felt on earth. There's not a time in which Allah isn't angry and which nothing is felt on earth. Whenever Allah's wrath becomes severe, then there's going to be a physical feeling of that wrath on the earth with regards to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creatures. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, he says that whenever there's widespread riba, usury, when people deal with riba and they look at it as a small, simple thing, and whenever there's widespread zina, men cheat on their wives like it's nothing, women cheat on their husbands like it's nothing, young men, young women, they refuse to get married, or their parents refuse to marry them off and help them get married for whatever reason, money, race, culture, age, jealousy and envy, or wishing to relive themselves through their children. You say to your son is tall and strong and agile, your son wishes to be a lawyer or a businessman, you say, no, you're going to play basketball. You're going to go to high school, you're going to go to college, you're going to get drafted. Because when I was younger, I was good. I had talent, but I got injured. I tore my ACL. Or I had to take care of your mother. Or I ran into trouble. And now I'm going to relive myself through you. That's oppressive. And many parents, they do this. A young man wants to get married, a young girl wants to get married, and they say no, because they want them to lead a certain lifestyle or profession. Whatever the reason is, when people make zina in abundance and riba is done in abundance, Abdullah Mas'ud says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has announced, and he will announce that this village and this town, this city will be destroyed. It will be destroyed. Then Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he then says here, regarding another story of one of the Bani Israel, regarding the dream that he saw. Moving forward, he says, from the ugliness of zina is that there are three special things regarding the punishment for zina. Things that can't be found in any other crime in the Sharia. Three special traits and qualities regarding the prescribed punishment of zina that isn't found in any other crime in the Sharia. Stealing, murder, highway robbery, all of the things that people do that are unlawful and they're punishable by the hudud. He says that zina has three things unlike no other crime. Number one, he says here, first and foremost is qatl. He says death, capital punishment. Obviously, there are other things that a person can do in which he or she can face capital punishment in Islam, but he starts off by saying that zina is death, punishable by death. Listen carefully. He says, and the death in which the person suffers who makes zina is the ugliest type of death. Someone who takes the life of another individual, he faces capital punishment. Man baddala dinahu faqtuluhu, apostatizing, becoming an enemy to the Islamic State, he faces capital punishment, but it's not like the punishment of zina. The punishment for someone who is married and then they make zina is to be stoned to death. Just think about stoning someone to death. Just think about an animal. Just think, this is maybe a bad example, maybe a good example, but just think about it. If you ever leave your house early in the morning, and you see a possum or a raccoon, and the possum and the raccoon may be what? They say rabbit. You defend yourself, you throw a rock at it, you throw a stone at it, and you miss, and you throw another one to get it out of your path, or you collect trash, whatever the case may be. Think how tough the animal is. Oftentimes you may hit something with a cinder block. You may throw this, hit this, and the animal doesn't die. It sits there, it moves, it twitches, so on and so forth, and it doesn't die. Regardless, whether you did it defending yourself or whether you were punishing the animal. I'm just trying to prove a point here. Is that how slow and gruesome of a death it will be to stone someone. The rocks are not huge boulders. You're not hitting the zany with cinder blocks, nor tiny pebbles, moderate-sized rocks. So just imagine how many rocks have to be hurled and thrown for a person to die. How much pain and agony is experienced at that time. He says, so this is the ugliest type of qatl in the Sharia. There isn't cut across the neck. There isn't this. No, it's ugly. It's a shape, shania. So just stop and think about it. He says, and that's like no other punishment in what? In the Sharia. Just think about a human being dying from being pelted with stones. Abdul Qawi, how long is that going to take? He says here, and whenever the punishment for zina isn't capital punishment, like someone who's a virgin, or someone who was never married before, whenever there's a lighter punishment for zina, then Allah gives him more. It's a supplemented punishment. And that is them being flogged and them being banished from their city and their town for a year. So Allah Azza wa Jal, He makes a double punishment. Punishment upon the body, which is being flogged, and punishment upon the heart and the mind by being kicked out of your town. You're away from your friends, your wife, your children, or if you're not your wife, your friends and your family for an entire year, and everyone knows about it. Where is such and such? I didn't see him. Oh, you know why? He was kicked out because he made zina. So whenever there's only a lesser punishment, not being stoned to death, then you get what? A double punishment, which may be even worse. Which may be what? Which may be worse. And you have to live with that for the rest of your life. People are always bringing that up. Fulan made zina. Fulan, he was kicked out. Fulan wasn't there for a year. Remember that year? What we did? How fun it was? This and that. Yusuf wasn't there. He was what? He had to leave the 5 boroughs. He had to leave Brooklyn. As a hypothetical example. So that's real deep if you think about it. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he then says, the second distinguishing feature with regards to the punishment of zina is that he forbids his servants from having any mercy or compassion. He forbids them from having any mercy and compassion upon implementing the prescribed punishment upon the fornicators. And that is because Allah Azza wa Jal is more merciful to us than we are to our own selves. He is the one who legislated this punishment for zina. Okay? He is the one subhanahu wa ta'ala who declared for this to be done. And if Allah is more merciful to us than we are to ourselves, then the question is asked, who are you to feel shame or to feel sorrow or to feel pity for them? And Allah Azza wa Jal Himself is saying, I've legislated this for my servants with whom I'm more merciful to them than you are. So Allah, He clearly tells us in Surah An-Nur that you're not supposed to be taken over by ra'fa, compassion. Oh, that's messed up. Let us take it easy on them. Let us not flog them. Let us not throw the stones. Or maybe perhaps la. You have to be serious. It has to be a stark punishment, which is no mercy. You have to be decisive in beating this person or stoning this person. And this goes to show you the ugliness of a zina. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he then says, وهذا وإن كان عاما في سائر الحدود ولكن ذكر في حد الزنا خاصة لشدة الحاجة إلى ذكره فإن الناس لا يجدون في قلوبهم من الغلظة والقسوة على الزاني ما يجدونه على السارق والقاذف وشارب الخمر فقلوبهم ترحم الزاني أكثر مما ترحم غيره من أرباب الجرائم والواقع شاهد بذلك فنهوا أن تأخذهم هذه الرأفة وتحميلهم على تعطيل حد الله. Ibn Qayyim says this is the rule regarding all of Allah's punishments. You're not supposed to feel pity when you're implementing Allah's hudud. But Allah Azza wa Jal, He only mentioned this pertaining to zina. The punishments, taking the hand off the thief, Allah doesn't say, don't feel sorry for them. He doesn't say, don't be merciful to them. He only mentioned that pertaining to zina. And that's because a person may feel pity for a fornicator, not like that of a thief. Not like that of a slanderer. Not like that of other crimes and other punishments. Just look at our culture today. What's the big deal? It's a girlfriend, boyfriend. It's natural. It's normal. It's the natural way. What's the big deal? If you had a girlfriend in your mother's house, your grandmother's house, would she be more upset, or if you stole from her purse? Or if you were selling drugs or doing this and doing that? Which one? In most cases, she'd be more upset upon what? Upon you stealing and making other crimes. Everybody understands in general. And what in general? Obviously, there are different types of backgrounds. Some people, we're not talking about everybody, but in general, the concept of a person feeling merciful towards is just pure love. It was his girlfriend. It's a romantic story. Don't be so mean, don't be so harsh. But who likes a thief? And what culture is it acceptable for a person to steal and to oppress people and to take their hard-earned wealth? But how many cultures and religions around the world in which it's okay to have a lover or a girlfriend? It's not the same. It's what? It's a world of a difference between the two. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, so Allah Azza wa Jal, He clearly forbade His slaves from having any mercy and any compassion and totally diffusing Allah's punishments. And a person doing away with the hudud of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَالسَّبَبُ هَذِهِ الرَّحْمَةِ أن هذا ذنب يقع من الأشراف والأوساط والأراذل وفي النفوس أقوى الدواء إليه والمشارك فيه كثير وأكثر أسبابه العشق والقلوب مجبولة على رحمة العاشق وكثير من الناس يعد مساعدته طاعة وقربة وإن كانت الصورة المعشوقة محرمة عليه ولا يستنكر هذا الأمر فمستقر عندما شاء الله من أشباه الأنعام ولقد حكي لنا من ذلك شيء كثير أكثره عن ناقص العقول كالخدام والنساء. Ibn Qayyim, he then says, and one of the reasons why is so much mercy involved upon a fornicator is because it happens to everyone. No one is, or it has no prejudice. A noble person makes zina, a peasant makes zina, an older person, this person, everyone falls into it. And that's not the same as thievery, stealing. No high, honorable person that's wealthy needs to steal like that. And if he does steal, his stealing is strategic. It's not a petty thief, as they say. What? A common thief, a petty thief. He's stealing from countries, millions of dollars in resources, oil and bananas and power plants in South America. That's a different type of stealing. But you're not going to see no wealthy person, stealing something small and trifling in the store, and that's something that's really wrong with him. But everybody, he says, zina can happen to anyone. And many people, he says, they have, waliyadhu billah, a love, and they are inclined towards ishq, towards lust and passion. Like we just said, look at our culture. Movies, books, novels. It's about what? A romantic story. Western culture is based off of the French Revolution. It was normal to have a lover in France. That's the culture. Every Disney movie, it's a love story. That's how the people they love these romantic things, Some of the most popular movies ever made were those that were based off of what? Romance and a true love story, She wasn't married to him. She was unhappy with her husband, but she felt in true love, with the young boy on the boat, and the likes. Moving forward, Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he then says, summarizing, moving to the next point, وأيضا فإن هذا ذنب غالب ما يقع مع التراضي من الجانبين ولا يقع فيه من العدوان والظلم والاغتصاب ما ينفر النفوس منه وفيها شهوة غالبة له فتسور ذلك لنفسها فيقوم بها رحمة تمنع إقامة الحد. He says another reason why Allah Azza wa Jalla specifically mentioned not to have any mercy and any compassion is that in most cases, not all cases, but in most cases, the zina takes place from both sides. And there isn't oppression and wrongdoing and someone forcing their will upon the next individual. Obviously it happens sometimes, rape, statutory rape, etc. But the general concept of these are two consenting adults, they chose to make zina. That's not the same as sticking somebody up. You got them on Khalil at what? Gunpoint. Give me what? Run that. It's no option. It's no what? You're the wrongdoer. You're making a dhulm on him. I need that. Zina is not like that. It's the man and the woman what? Coming together willfully. And then other things like this, other murder, other crimes in which is one person making the dhulm and the udwan, the aggressor, the transgressor, the one that's doing the wrong against the next. So the people, they may have what? They may not have no mercy for that one. You're a killer. You're a murderer. No, that's not right. But people who both came together with zina, it's more natural for a person to what? Have mercy. Let alone, Ibn Qayyim, he says one can relate to it and think about himself. And that's serious right there. He says, oh man, I can't do this. I used to make zina. I used to have a girlfriend. I wasn't always practicing. That's not right. I was never a thief. I was never a murderer. I was never a drunkard. I was never this. But everyone knows to have a girlfriend at a young age, a boyfriend, and so on and so forth. I lost my virginity like this and like that. So I can't put the had on fulan. He says, Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, don't think like this. Have no mercy upon them. He goes on to say, وَهَذَا كُلُّهُ مِنْ ضَعْفِ الْإِيمَانِ وَكَمَالُ الْإِيمَانِ أَنْ يَقُومَ بِهِ قُوَّةً يُقِيمُ بِهَا أَمْرَ اللَّهِ وَرَحْمَةٌ يَرْحَمُ بِهَا الْمَحْدُودِ فَيَكُونُ مُوَافِقًا لِرَبِّهِ تَعَالَى فِي أَمْرِهِ وَرَحْمَتِهِ. He says, and all of this is from weak faith. This is weak iman. For you to feel pity, for you to feel mercy and sorrow for a fornicator or a fornicatress. It's from weak and low iman. And if the iman was strong and powerful, then it would give you a physical power to establish Allah's commands. To do what? To establish Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commands. So therefore, when a person does this, he's establishing Allah's commands, and he's also showing mercy to the mahdud, the one who's being punished. It's a mercy to him. Your sin is being forgiven, being wiped away, as we mentioned before. So therefore, his actions coincide, and they agree with Allah Azza wa Jalla's command, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy moving forward. الثالث أنه سبحانه أمر أن يكون حدهما بمشهد من المؤمنين فلا يكون خلوة حيث لا يراهما أحد وذلك أبلغ في مصلحة الحد وحكمة الزجر. The third specific trait of the punishment of zina is that Allah commanded for it to be done publicly. He ordered for it to be done publicly, and it cannot be done behind closed doors. It cannot be done with just you tie someone to a tree, and you flog them. You beat someone that's a noble person or a knowledgeable person, an influential person. I don't want the rest of the people to lose respect for you. It's going to look bad for everybody if I beat you in public. No. He has to be what? Whipped in front of everybody. So the peasants, the slaves, the low people, they see this noble, influential person being whipped. And that's establishing justice. And that has a far more powerful impact of pushing the people from zina. It's a greater inhibitor. He got whipped, he got stoned to death, then indeed it can happen to me. And that's not the same as someone being whipped behind closed doors and there's gossip about it. I heard such and such got beat. I heard such and such got punished. Someone is going to find out about it. There's going to be a security guard, there's going to be a servant, someone is going to spill the beans, as they say. And there's going to be gossip. Gossip will spread. But it isn't the same as the people what? Seeing it themselves. It's not the same. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he then says, وَحَدُّ الزَّانِ الْمُحْصَنِ مشتق من عقوبة الله سبحانه لقوم لوط بالقذف بالحجارة وذلك الاشتراك الزنا واللواط في الفحش وفي كل منهما فساد يناقض حكمة الله في خلقه وأمره فإن في اللواط من المفاسد ما يفوت الحصر والتعداد ولأن يقتل المفعول به خير له من أن يؤتى فإنه يفسد فسادا لا يرجى له بعده صلاح أبدا ويذهب خيرك كله وتمص الأرض مأوية الحياة من وجهه فلا يستحي بعد ذلك لا من الله ولا من خلقه وتعمل في قلبه وروحه نطفة الفاعل ما يعمل السم في البدن. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he then says, and the punishment of a zani who was once married being stoned to death, he says it evolved from the punishment of the people of Lut, the people that were stoned, fire and brimstone, as they say, fire and brimstone. The people upon whom those stones were hurled, they died like that. They were committing sodomy and homosexuality. He says that the punishment of zina is extracted from that. Even though this person who made zina wasn't a homosexual, he wasn't a bugger, he didn't make buggery, he didn't make sodomy, he didn't do this evil fahisha with another man, obviously lesbianism is haram in Islam, but it isn't the same punishment. There isn't the same punishment. For a man to make sodomy with another man, that's a whole different story. Women being lesbians is haram in Islam, but it is not the same punishment. There's no specific dalil to say that they are to be punished. There's no authentic hadith in which prescribes a specific punishment for them. So he says here that even though it wasn't a man going to another man, but it's still something which is fahish. It's too much. It's unbearable. It's out of the norm. It's not right to sleep with a girl and oppress her and disrespect her and her family, to have a child. And this goes on to the harms of zina. It says it's too much. He says, so that's where the punishment comes from. Then Ibn Qayyim, he says, and perhaps it's something that we need in 2018, he says, because there's a great amount of corruption, it's something that goes against the wisdom of Allah when a person makes zina. and the wisdom of Allah when a person makes homosexuality. Then he says, as far as the harms of liwat, of homosexuality, he says, and it's something that is not enough time to talk about. He says there's no calculator, there's no abacus that can count all of the harms of homosexuality. He says it goes on and on and on, the problems that come from homosexuality. He says homosexuality, he says it's best for a person to be murdered. Listen to what Ibn Qayyim says, this is deep. All of the years that years ago he died. Imagine Ibn Qayyim was in Brooklyn, New York to this day, in which you watch a cartoon and it's a rainbow, or you read a child's story and it's two dads, two papa bears raising a small bear, and a kid's story. Nothing wrong with two fathers. And when you go into the coffee shop and there's a rainbow. You walk past a store, it's a rainbow. A commercial, it's a rainbow. Everything is a rainbow. And each and every color represents an aspect of the LGBTQ philosophy of life. Imagine Ibn Qayyim was living today. He lived in a time and in a place, a culture, a society in which homosexuality was barely thought about. Openly, at least. It was extremely taboo. Extremely taboo. Ibn Qayyim, he says, for a person to be killed and murdered, it's better for him to be raped and for zina, for homosexuality to be performed against him. For a man to die defending himself, and the homosexual man takes his life, he says it's better for sodomy to be committed against him. Ibn Qayyim, he says here, and that's because once sodomy is made against him and homosexuality is made against him, he says there's no hope for him afterwards. He says it's no good to look forward to this man whose manhood was what? He said, don't get your what? Your manhood took. The poet said this. He said, what? You want to be a tough guy? You want to be a gangster on the streets? Don't be what? CO, tell you what? He said, don't what? Don't get your manhood took. The poet, he said this on that bus, wishing that you ain't locked up. Poet, he said this. He says here, for a man's life to be taken is better for homosexuality to be performed on him. Because as if there's no good in him afterwards, he's useless. Ibn Qayyim says it's very, very difficult for someone to bounce back from that. He loses his shyness from Allah, from the people, and the list goes on. And he says here, it's like poison in the body. He says, وَتَعْمَلُ فِي قَلْبِهِ وَرُوحِهِ نُطْفَةُ الْفَاعِلِ مَا يَعْمَلُ السُّمْ فِي الْبَدَنِ. He says the fluid, the semen from a man entering his body, what it does to his heart and his spirit is like poison in his physical body. Ibn Qayyim, he then says, وَقَدْ اخْتَلَفَ النَّاسُ هَلْ يَدْخُلُ الْجَنَّةَ مَفْعُولٌ بِهِ عَلَى قَوْلَيْنِ سَمِعْتُ شَيْخَ الْإِسْلَامِ يَحْكِيهِمَا. Ibn Qayyim, he then brings up an issue. And that issue is a man who was raped, a man upon whom homosexuality and sodomy was done to, will he enter paradise or not? He says that the people, they differ on whether he's going to go to Jannah or not. He says there are two main views of the ulama of Islam, and I heard my master Ibn Taymiyyah telling me both of them, both of these opinions. Listen carefully. He says, وَالَّذِينَ قَالُوا يَدْخُلُ الْجَنَّةَ احْتَجُّوا بِأُمُورٍ مِنْهَا أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا يدخل الجنة ولد زنية فإذا كان هذا حال ولد الزنا مع أنه لا ذنب له في ذلك ولكنه مظنة كل شر وخبث وهو جدير أن لا يجيء منه خير أبدا لأنه مخلوق من نطفة خبيثة وإذا كان الجسد الذي تربى على الحرام النار أولى به فكيف بالجسد المخلوق من النطفة الحرام. He says here, listen carefully to this. Ibn Qayyim says those who say that a man who was turned into a homosexual, he says that the first group of ulama are those who say that he will not enter paradise. He's not going to Jannah. And the proofs that they use are the following. Number one, he says first and foremost they use the hadith that states that a child of zina will never enter paradise. That a child of zina, a bastard child, an illegitimate child, won't go to Jannah. Now, before we continue Ibn Qayyim's speech, a few disclaimers. First and foremost, we know that there's a very long discussion with regards to the authenticity of that hadith. Did the Prophet say those words? Is that authentic? Is that sahih? Did he even say that? And if he did make that statement that a child of zina won't enter Jannah, then perhaps the correct understanding of that hadith is that what's meant by waladu zanya, yani wabn as-sabil, is the nickname and the title that's given to someone because they keep doing a thing. Allah calls the wayfarer and the traveler, Abu on the road again, He calls him what? Ibn as-Sabil. He calls him the son of the road. Someone who travels so much as if the road has done what? Adopted him. And he's Ibn as-Sabil. The word for a wayfarer, a person who travels from city to city, country to country, borough to borough. In Islam, in Arabic, in the Quran, is called Ibn as-Sabil. And the literal translation of Ibn is son, and Sabil is a path. Because he travels so much, he's called what? Ibn as-Sabil. So some ulama, they say that's what's meant by this hadith. Waladu zanya yani al-mukthir min az-zina. Is one who constantly makes zina so much that they call him a child of zina. Moving forward, Ibn al-Qayyim, he says that these scholars, they say, they use this hadith to say, if the child who's made from zina won't go to paradise, even though he has no sin that he made. He made no sin. What was his crime? It wasn't his fault that his parents made zina together and they weren't married. He says, if that's the state of one who comes from zina, then what about one who what? Homosexuality, what? Was done to him. Ibn Qayyim, he then says, and the reason why they hold this view, this hadith and this view, is because this child, in most cases, he says, no good will come from this child. In most cases, he says, no good, madhinna. No good is going to come from this bastard child. In most cases. Why is this? That is because he came from haram semen, haram sperm, haram fluids. Show you how deep things can get. He says that the Prophet ﷺ, he tells us that a child that's raised upon haram and fed with haram and nourished with haram, an-naru awla bihi, the fire has more right to him than what is someone who comes from nutfa of haram. Go show you the ugliness of zina. The ugliness what? Of a zina. So he says, due to the fact that his fluid, his water, from which he was created, was polluted and stained, he says, in most cases, there's not going to be any good that's going to come from him. Then obviously we know that this is the speech of these scholars and Ibn al-Qayyim, and this isn't absolute. This isn't absolute. It's not the words of the Prophet ﷺ. Someone could come from zina, could be guided to Islam or raised in Islam and learn and study, alhamdulillah. It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't necessarily mean that. But in many cases, or if not most cases, a person's background is critical. And his upbringing and his cultivation. Everybody clear on this? His upbringing and his what? And his cultivation. But it doesn't mean that if a person was a Christian and my parents made zina, or my father, I don't know who he was, it doesn't mean that you're doomed and cursed. It doesn't mean that. And the proof that you're not doomed and cursed is that some brothers or sisters, they may be sitting here saying, wow, is this me? You're sitting in the masjid listening to Ibn al-Qayyim's speech. So if you're doomed and cursed, absolutely, then obviously you wouldn't be here. Everybody understand the point we're trying to get to? It doesn't necessarily mean that, but it does mean something. It does mean something in the ugliness of a zina and foul lineage. Everybody understand this? A righteous seed and a wicked seed. Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah ta'ala, he then says, so if the child who's raised upon haram won't go to Jannah, then what about someone that comes from nutfa khabitha? Nutfa, that's haram. The fluid from the male and the fluid from the female, that's unlawful. قالوا والمفعول به شر من ولد الزنا وأخزى وأخبث وأوقح وهو جدير أن لا يوفق لخير وأن يحال بينه وبينه وكلما عمل خيرا خيذ ما يفسده عقوبة له وقال أن ترى من كان كذلك في صغره إلا وهو في كبره شر مما كان ولا يوفق لعلم نافع ولا عمل صالح ولا توبة نصوح. Ibn Qayyim says, and they also say, those ulama who hold this view, they also say, is that if he's worse than a bastard child, and he's more disgraced, and he's more filthy, and more repugnant, then in most cases he won't be given success to do good. Someone upon whom this sodomy was done. In most cases he's not going to have any type of success in his life afterwards. He says, and whenever he wishes to do some type of good, a punishment will come, preventing him from doing good, from him submitting himself to that horrible, despicable act of humiliation. He says, and in most cases, when he gets older, he's not going to become any better, but he's only going to become more and more dilapidated in his old age, and he won't he won't obtain any beneficial knowledge, nor any righteous action, nor any sincere tawbah. So just stop the tape for a second, and just look at Ibn al-Qayyim's time. He died in the 8th century. The 8th century of the Hijrah. We're in 2018. in which the agenda of zina is being thrown and forced down people's throats day and night on every aspect. What would Ibn al-Qayyim say what? Today. Now, many people, they ask about LGBTQ. I've been asked many times. Once I was asked in South Carolina, we're doing a conference there last summer. And someone said, well, what is the Muslim stance towards LGBTQ? What's the Muslim stance? What is our stance, huh? What is our stance with regards to these things? So I told them, first and foremost, we live in America, the United States. You can't force or impose your will or your faith upon anybody. And they said, do homosexuals have rights in Islam? I said, we're living in America. If my neighbor was a homosexual, he's still my neighbor. I can't oppress him. I can't wrong him. If someone is doing something to his property unjustly, I can't just turn a blind eye. But it doesn't mean I agree with him. And it doesn't mean that his sexual orientation is my main concern. It doesn't necessarily what? It doesn't necessarily mean that. So many people, to attack Islam, they mix facts with myths. The crime for homosexuality, for sodomy in Islam is death, so on and so on and so forth. So therefore all Muslims against the whole LGBT movement, they're against homosexuals, they discriminate, they commit acts of violence, etc. No, not necessarily. Doesn't mean that. If you choose to sleep with another man, or you choose to sleep with another woman, or you choose to do both, to do a man one day and a woman the next day, that's your own business. That's not my business. I'm not here when I walk into a bank or I call a company to ask about your sexual orientation. Rather, you may find that people who are upon the LGBTQ movement today, they may be better professionals than heterosexuals. They may be better professionals, and they may be less prejudiced against you for being a Muslim. You come into a place with a beard and a white dress on, they may be more welcoming to you because one way or another, you're similar to them. We're both minorities. We're both people that refuse to go with the mainstream culture of the people. You are someone who chooses not to dress like the average person and not to behave like the average person. And people discriminate you because you're a Muslim or because you're an Arab or an Arab, and they discriminate against me because I'm a homosexual. This is a reality. So your sexual orientation and what you do and how you behave has nothing to do with me. I'm here to pay my phone bill. That's it. Hello, how you doing? Have a nice day. That's it. This is America. It's the United States. There's no sharia. There's no hudud. There's no forced punishments. It's not in our hands living in this country. In any country like this. In any country like this. The hatred of that act. No question about that. You have to hate it in your heart. If you have the ability to speak out against it, you speak out against it. But physically changing it and stopping it and enforcing it, that's something that is beyond your capacity. That's beyond your spiritual jurisprudence or your spiritual jurisdiction. Everybody clear on this or not? So the concept of being a professional as a Muslim, I walk into a store, I'm here to buy a product, to pay a bill, that's it. I'm not here to talk about religion. I'm not here to ask. If you want to ask me about my religion, tafaddal. What is the rule on being a homosexual? Can I be a Muslim? I'll tell you what I know, what I think. How can I be a Muslim? I'll tell you that. But I'm not here to discuss these things. And professionalism is one of the most beneficial principles for a Muslim living in the United States today. And many brothers, they mix and they jumble this thing up. They get into arguments and discussions that they have no business in from the first place. This is a place of business. This is a place of this. It's not a place of what? You arguing and fighting someone. Someone who's interested in Islam and they want to know about Islam, it's clear. They're going to ask about Islam. They're going to be curious about Islam. Even if it comes forth in a glance or a question. An old Italian man, he asked me one day, I was out with my children. We went to take a stroll on the beach. An old Italian guy with his wife, he walked up to me, old man. He said, excuse me. He says, are you hot wearing this? Can you breathe? Is your fabric breathable? I said, yeah, of course it's a little hot, but I'm all right. I'm maintaining. So, okay, because I just wanted to know. And he walked off. If he had a curiosity to ask that one question, imagine what is in his head and his heart about Islam and about Muslims. Everybody understand this? But you don't impose and force your will upon anyone. So if you're gay, or if you're this or that, whatever you want to be, hey, that's your problem. That's your issue, not mine. But I'm still a representative of Islam through my character and through my professionalism. And it's nothing wrong with you being a what? A professional. It's a basic standard of being a professional. Everyone understand this? And it doesn't mean that you like and you're pleased with the evil with what this person is performing. Everybody clear this or not? And this can save you from a lot of problems. A lot of problems like this. Moving forward, Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala, he then says, وَالتَّحْقِيقُ فِي الْمَسْأَلَةِ أَنْ يُقَالَ أن تاب المبتلى بهذا البلاء وأناب ورزق توبة نصوحا وعملا صالحا وكان في كبره خيرا منه في صغره وبدل سيئاته بحسنات وغسل عار ذلك عنه بأنواع الطاعات والقربات وغض بصره وحفظ فرجه من المحرمات وصدق الله في معاملته فهذا مغفور له وهو من أهل الجنة فإن الله يغفر الذنوب جميعا وإذا كانت التوبة تحمو كل ذنب حتى الشرك بالله وقتل أنبيائه وأوليائه والسحر والكفر وغير ذلك فلا تقصر عن محو هذا الذنب. Ibn Qayyim says in the strongest view regarding a homosexual or someone upon whom sodomy was done and made, he says the strongest view regarding this person going to Jannah is the following. Number one, if this person makes tawbah and they return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Allah azza wa jal blesses them and gives them a sincere repentance and an acceptance of this repentance, and they work good, they do hard, they perform righteous deeds, they work hard, they do good, and when they're older they're better than when they were younger, what they used to be upon and do, and they turn and recycle their bad deeds into good deeds, and he washes the filth and the humiliation off of him, and he protects his chastity, and he's truthful with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then no question he'll be forgiven. There's no doubt, and this person will go to Jannah. They will go to paradise. And that is because Allah Azza wa Jalla forgives all sins. And Tawbah erases every sin, even shirk, as long as a person is alive. The moment you die, shirk is unforgivable. But during one's lifetime, Allah forgives every crime, even the shirk, murdering his prophets, murdering his righteous awliya. As Al-Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, and this was a fact that I got from one of my friends, one of the disciples in Egypt, a good friend of mine, brother from Toronto. He shared a faida with me of Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah ta'ala, brother Idris. And he said that Hasan al-Basri said, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ فَتْنُوا الْمُؤْمِنَاتِ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ إِنَّ الَّذِينَ فَتْنُوا الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ ثُمَّ لَمْ يَتُوبُوا فَلَهُمْ عَذَابُ جَهَنَّمْ وَلَهُمْ عَذَابُ الْحَرِيقِ. Allah says in Surah Al-Buruj that the people who put the believers through a fitna, male and female believers, and they don't make tawbah, they die without making tawbah, then they will have a blazing fire of hell in the hereafter. Hasan al-Basri said, look at Allah's courtesy, and look at Allah's patience, and look how gentle Allah is. They kill His trusted, beloved slaves, and He invites them to make tawbah. He calls them to repent, and they're murdering the best of His created beings after the prophets. It's a very profound concept if you think about it. ثُمَّ لَمْ يَتُوبُ, Allah says, without making tawbah. So for someone to kill your family member, your friend, your close companion, and you tell them, if you don't make repentance, I'm going to take revenge against you, I'm going to avenge his death. That takes a great deal, of maturity to say something like that. If you don't do the right thing, then I'm going to kill you in return. So Allah says if they don't make tawbah, then they'll burn in the fire of hell. Meaning if they did make tawbah, different story. So He says that Allah forgives all sins, even shirk, and murdering the prophets, and murdering His awliya. He says sorcery, sihr, kufr, and all types of evil acts. He says if that's the case with regards to those major sins, then homosexuality and sodomy isn't far-fetched from that. Allah Azza wa Jalla, He forgives all sins, but the person has to do what? He has to come back, and he has to clean himself up and change 100%. He has to invert himself. Now just stop and think about these words of wisdom, and look at our modern times in 2018 in the United States of America. Just stop and think about that, and how you can experience someone on television, on YouTube, or any social media platform saying that there's no proof in Islam that homosexuality is haram. There's no proof in Islam saying that you can't be gay in Islam. For someone to do an interview and to publicize I'm a gay imam, or to have a gay community, and to have this type of audacity and arrogance. All of these ulama, some of them said that a person won't go to Jannah. And the person says that there's no proof, there's no scholars, no one has ever said that it's haram in Islam. And it's very hypocritical. And many people, they fall into the same sin. Those people call themselves progressive or modern Muslims, modern interpretation of the Quran, progressive understanding of the Quran. Everything is acceptable. Everything's liberal. You interpret the verses of hijab to mean shyness. I say modesty. I say hijab is of the heart. I say hijab is having a scarf on your head with your ears open and your neck out. It's all right. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not what's meant by this verse. We interpret it. We live in 2018. We're not living in a desert anymore. 1,400 years ago, these verses were sent down. Things are different now. So we have to have a different interpretation of Islam. This is a reality now. And the non-Muslims, they go back to these people to make the political statements about Islam. So therefore, everything is accepted. But the hypocritical thing is that they won't accept the original, traditional, classical interpretation. We're all supposed to be friends. Everyone's supposed to get along. I'm never ever supposed to look down upon what you say. So why can't I take the view that the verse is literal? Why can't I take the classic understanding of the issue of homosexuality that was adopted by Muslims for 1,000 years? Why is that barbaric or inhumane or unjust? So where is your liberal stance? It goes out the window now if you go against their agenda. And there are many, many other issues like this. It really doesn't mean that it's really not haram. Why not? This is what all of the ulama understood for over 1,000 years. The ulama from this part of the world, this country, this continent, all the ulama, they all understood the verse to mean this. And in 2018, this has a different meaning that is totally unacceptable. That's very hypocritical. So you have to live by your own principles. If you're going to be liberal and progressive, then you have to be liberal and progressive what? For everything. This is the view that we take, that it's permissible to be a homosexual in Islam, even though the scholars of Islam unanimously agree for 14 centuries that it's haram, 1,400 years, but this is the opinion we take and we don't censure them. Okay, that's not as bad as someone to look down upon the tremendous legacy of Islamic scholarship for 1,400 years and come with a new view and a new opinion. Allah Azza wa Jalla surely knows best. We ask Him subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from zina and protect us from homosexuality, and most importantly, protect our children therefrom. To protect our young, tender children from this towering scourge of zina and of homosexuality and lesbianism and all of these things that are being hurled at them at frightening speeds. Wa sallallahu sallam wa barak ala abdihi wa rasulihi nabiyina wa imamina Muhammad.